I'm back with the final installment of Adapting Asana. So every first Friday of the month I've been bringing you this series talking about different ways that you can just change up how you practice asana or postures, or maybe how you teach it if you are an instructor. Hopefully both. We've talked about using yoga equipment, finding the essence of postures, breaking them down. We've talked about static versus dynamic poses. And so today I wanted to talk about changing up your orientation to the ground. So in yoga, there's a lot of emphasis, at least the way I teach and the way I practice, on grounding or finding your points of contact with the ground. You'll hear me say that all the time in my classes, just as a way of bringing awareness to your foundation. And from there, you can work on things like stability, you can work on being present. It's just a nice way of being in your body, and I think it's a really great starting point for any posture, starting from the ground, working your way up. So how we can adopt asana by changing our relationship to the ground, or changing our physical orientation to the ground, or how we're moving or working with gravity, is something that I find to be really fun, and something that I've already kind of just noticed is present in a lot of postures anyway. So if you think about bridge pose, for example, bridge pose is very similar to camel. When you think about it, maybe close your eyes and visualize both postures, they're pretty much doing the same things with your bodies. You're sending your hips forward, you're opening through the chest, you're pressing into your points of contact with the ground. So that's going to be a little different from your bridge pose, where it's going to be your feet and the backs of your arms. And in camel, it's going to be your shins and the tops of your feet. So that's one example. Another example is if you think of splits or half split, and then visualize standing splits. That one's a little more obvious because they share the same name, but it's really doing that same movement in your body, but you're doing it from just a different relationship to the ground. So with traditional splits, you're going to be your legs are going to be parallel to the ground, and in standing split, you're going to be perpendicular to the ground. So I think it's pretty fun to just think about poses you do, and maybe they're similar to other ones. Another one that I think about is Skandasana, side lunge. A lot of times when I'm doing happy baby, I just kind of intuitively start to extend one leg and bring the opposite knee in towards my armpit and kind of change sides. And it's almost the same flow as if you're doing Skandasana, kind of flowing left to right, only you're on your back. So there are lots of reasons why that could be more accessible for anyone. Sometimes people's balance is not there, or it could be, there could be blood pressure issues, maybe vision is something, that isn't there or accessible. So maybe doing a balancing posture, standing upright on one foot, isn't going to be accessible. We've talked about using the wall as a prop, or just as a resource for things like that. But you can also do standing postures, standing balancing postures on your back. And I know that sounds maybe really strange to some of you, but one of my favorite things to do is to lie flat on the ground with my feet up against a wall. So my feet would be flat on the wall. And then take, for example, one knee into my chest while extending the other. And you're doing that same shape as you would if you were standing, but you're lying on your back. You still have the grounding sensation from the foot pressing into the wall, but you're going to feel more stable since you've got the ground supporting your body as well. Same with things like arm balances. A nice way to practice if you're wanting to start working with arm balances is to practice them on your back. Or if you have no intention of ever doing an arm balance in the traditional sense, with your hands flat on the ground and the rest of your body balancing up on your body somewhere or in the air, is to lie on your back and take that same shape. So I'll show you some of that as well, but I'm going to just illustrate like a handful of examples of ways we can switch up our relationship to the ground with different postures. So I'll start first with a posture that people do often in any given yoga asana class, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So this would be like the traditional down dog, but you can also take down dog with the use of like a chair. So that would just be lifting yourself up a little higher. Another option could be using a wall. Another option with the chair could be to actually sit in the chair, extend the legs, extend the arms. You're flexing the ankles, you're flexing the wrists. Head is in line with arms. And this is still really active. And lastly, you could even do down dog from your back. Again, that might sound really strange, but give it a try. Coming onto your back, you extend through the legs, extend through the arms. If you want to make it even more challenging, you could lift your head in line with arms. This is arguably more challenging than traditional down dog because of the core strength required. You could do it with your head back, but it still requires quite a bit of core. While I'm down here, I'll kind of show you what I meant with the arm balances. So crow pose, you could do it on your back. Extending through the arms, flexing the wrists, hugging your knees in towards like your triceps or your armpits, rounding through the back. You can even do little crunches. You can do side crow. You can do variations, crossing the legs. So lots of options that don't require you to physically, do the arm balance like that. So that'll make it more accessible for folks for whatever reason it is they would not like to try the traditional version of those postures. You can give options and it becomes really fun to explore things like that. Another example could be like forward folds. It's like a wide leg forward fold standing. You can do the same thing on the ground. That's pretty common. You see folks offer this quite a bit. You can also take it on your back, doing like a legs up the wall variation. And, I love using a chair. You can do it in a chair as well. Same for staff pose. Sitting like this. You see my profile. This kind of resembles a half forward fold, like a half lift, Ardha Uttanasana. So see that shape and see this shape? Very similar. Could also do another legs up the wall variation to make that same shape again. And I think it's worth noting that none of these variations are inherently easier. All of these options are just going to be slightly different variations of the same shape in your body. So I find a lot of these variations to be more challenging than the traditional representation of them you may be used to. So I know sometimes when people hear modification or variation, it might kind of trigger this thing in their brain that's maybe this competitive thing where they're like, well, I don't want to do that because that's not the real thing. And I think that's honestly pretty problematic, just like a problematic thought pattern. It might be ingrained. I know for me, I still sometimes get that, when I hear people talk about peak poses or full expression, all of that language sometimes can kind of trigger this feeling of inadequacy or this feeling like I need to be doing more. And I think that has become pretty prevalent in yoga culture and in yoga classes. So I just want to remind everyone that, you know, the point of yoga is not to like level up or like your physical like game or, you know, achieve. You can argue, yes, there are ways that you can like advance in your practice and that you can like be goal oriented. But you know, it all has to like be balanced and, you know, not attaching to end goals, not attaching good or bad. Those are all things that are lessons within yoga as well that I think are really important to remember, especially if you are maybe coming from more of like a fitness background or like a sports background, or just like maybe you're just a competitive person, or you know, I struggle with like comparing myself to other people and things like that. So yoga is such a good opportunity to practice like reprogramming your brain like that, and kind of unlearning some of those just like ingrained things that maybe you've been conditioned to believe, or things that you've just adopted over time and you don't even really think about them. So yeah, within a practice, there's so many opportunities to kind of like question, why am I doing this again? Does this feel good in my body? Is this something that is like good for my body? Is this something that I really need to do? And I think changing up your orientation to the ground is a really awesome way of welcoming kind of that curiosity, welcoming trying new things and not being judgmental of yourself, exploring and having fun. And it kind of makes you just like think a little more critically. Like I said, like you start to think like, oh wait, I do that same exact like shape in this pose. Interesting, you know? So you can kind of start to like see these similarities within poses. Maybe one day you're really not, you know, like maybe your legs are super sore from like climbing stairs the day before, and it feels better to take like a more restorative approach with like a legs up the wall variation of any pose. You know, like, or maybe for some people like me, I know pigeon is like, does not feel good in my body. People who are hypermobile, I don't think it's safe for them to practice pigeon like that. But, you know, maybe you decide to instead do more of like something like this. You're getting the same stretch, only it's going to be a lot safer. So, that's all I've got to say for this segment. I think I will be returning in the coming months to bring more accessible yoga content. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like yet, but stay tuned. And I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to comment any variations you enjoy. I really just scratched the surface, honestly, with the ones that I showed you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon. Bye.